You ready for approval of minutes?
Yes, please.
Approval of minutes of the following Dearborn Board of Education meetings.
Did we do acknowledgement of
Those would
donation?
be Finance Committee meeting October 12th, 2020, Board Report 20-30. Regular P12 meeting October 12th, 2020, Board Report 20-31. Board Study Session October 26th, 2020, Board Report 20-32. Please make any necessary corrections and move approval of these minutes.
So moved.
Motion was
Support.
moved by trustee Mead, supported by trustee Petchikoff. Are there any corrections or discussion? Hearing none and seeing none. Madam
Practically
Secretary,
perfect.
can we have a roll call vote, please?
Lane, yes. McDonald?
Yes.
Mead?
Yes.
Moseb?
Yes.
Petchikoff?
Yes.
Thorpe?
Yes.
President Barry?
Yes, thank you. The motion carries. Dr. Malika, would you like to go back to acknowledgement of
No,
donations?
yes, I'll pull up, Mr. Muslin's gonna come up for donations. Thank you.
Did I skip something?
Yeah,
Donations? Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
that's okay.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm just burning through here.
I have no
Sorry.
problems with it. So we do have a few donations tonight, and it is proper to recognize these donations that have been made to our district, and we appreciate them very, very much. A donation of $980.35 has been offered to Etzel Ford High School by the Dearborn Education Foundation to be used for practicing piano for remote learning. A donation of $2,099.65 has been offered to Dearborn High School by the Dearborn Education Foundation to be used for practicing pianos for remote learning. A donation of $686.87 has been offered to Salina Elementary School by the Dearborn Education Foundation to be used for magnetic letters. Now that is something that is not polarizing. A donation of $150 has been offered to Cotter School by the Dearborn Education Foundation to be used for linking cube manipulatives. A donation of $200 in gift cards has been offered to Fortson High School by Moyen Doyad to be used for the battle against hunger for Zaman International. And a donation of 110 disposable masks has been offered to Dearborn High School by Brian Lloyd of Ford Motor Company to be used for staff, students, and visitors. And that is our donations for this evening.
thank you very much. Next item, please.
Special reports, HVAC report, Mr. Mark Andrews, Mr. Perry, Abby.
Good evening, Dr. Maleko, President Barry, trustees. I'm pleased to be here with two of our licensed HVAC technicians, and I just want to take this moment to tell you that they are a great asset to our district. They worked pretty hard on this presentation with a lot of questions that have been coming our way on these two subjects. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over. Oh, before, let me just mention, Mr. Abbey is here in person, and we also have Mr. Baranowski on virtual. He's going to help us with some questions at the end of this presentation if we have any.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. My name's Perry Abbey. I'm one of the two HVAC technicians for the district. I've got a short presentation. I think we've got a PowerPoint you can see, so I'll go ahead. The V in HVAC stands for ventilation, much neglected, but obviously important to us all now. So to talk about ventilation, two components to effective ventilation. One is exhausting stale air from a space or a classroom, but the second component is bringing in fresh air to replace that exhausted air, and those two things together make up ventilation, which is, to me, a very key component of a healthy indoor environment. So in our Dearborn schools, there's two methods that we have, infrastructures that we have to ventilate our classrooms. One very common one is something called a unit ventilator or a univent. And that's that long thing by the window that we all see on the outside wall of our classrooms. And that unit has a fan and a heating coil and sometimes a cooling coil. And it has an outdoor intake or a grill to the outside through that outside wall. So a unit ventilator draws in outdoor air all day while the school is occupied, pulls in a little bit of air from the classroom as well, mixes the two together, heats it, and then delivers it out the top where that air blows out of the unit ventilator. So all of our classrooms that contain unit ventilators are getting fresh air delivered by that unit ventilator all day long. Coupled with that typically would be an exhaust fan on the roof where that air would also be, some percentage of air would be exhausted all day long as well. So that's a very common infrastructure in many of our schools. Many of our schools, instead of unit ventilators, will have large central air handling units or AHUs. And that would be a large fan in a basement or a rooftop that would be ducted to several classrooms. And of course, that fan unit would have heating coil and a duct to the outside. So with an air handling unit, that would be an alternative to a univent where we would have a large piece of equipment that would bring in outdoor air, heat or cool it as necessary, and deliver it ducted to multiple classrooms. And that system as well would have large exhaust fans ducted to all those classrooms. So we would have an air handling unit delivering fresh air and an exhaust fan exhausting the stale air, operating in all our classrooms and spaces while the building is occupied. So here is a typical exhaust fan we see on rooftops for classrooms and other spaces in the school. Here's a typical outdoor air intake to an air handling unit that might be in a mechanical room or a rooftop. So large volumes of outdoor air entering through those louvers and being delivered to all the classrooms. If you have a classroom that's served by an air handling unit, you're not going to see the equipment. It's going to be in a mechanical room, but you will see louvers in the ceiling and the walls like we see in this picture that are delivering that air. This is a typical univent that you might see in other classrooms that have that. In this case, the fresh air mixture would blow out of the top of the unit and be distributed to the classroom. Ventilation standards. There's an organization called ASHRAE, the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers, which have been around for decades and write the codes and the standards for the quantities of air for different types of spaces, schools, hospitals, office buildings. All of Dearborn schools have been engineered and built to meet those standards and always have been. So Dearborn trade workers and our building operators are all working together to maintain those systems and keep them running to their original design conditions. So that's our infrastructure. Just was asked to include this just to remind people that we had column 5 here indicates what the architects had anticipated the HVAC upgrades. I think was $53 million there anticipated, was the goal of that bond. So those are still things that are ongoing, but now that the district has Rob and I, 2 HVAC techs, that's a good thing that we can maintain our older systems until that can be done. Okay. Filtration. So all of our air handlers and univents will have some filter banks to filter and clean the air as it passes through these air handlers and equipment. And filters are all rated with something called a MERV rating. The higher the MERV rating, the more dense the filter and the more particulates or the more things it will capture in that filter. So higher MERV rating, denser filter. A filter with too high of a MERV rating can be a problem on much equipment because we can actually end up restricting airflow and getting less of that outdoor air that we want. Or we could, if the system's not designed for these higher levels, we can have bypass around the filters. So throughout the district, we've been evaluating filters and filters are in the 8 to 13 MERV rating throughout the district, and we're continuing to work on that. Hepa filters are a super dense filter that captures a majority of particulates but move very small amounts of air and are not effective in large spaces. So typically a Hepa filter is in a vacuum or a small little countertop unit, and it's got a small fan. So it filters the air very well, but if it's only a small amount of air in the space, then the effectiveness is reduced with a small fan. HVAC control systems. We're fortunate here in the district to have something called Metasys. It's a product by Johnson Controls, and it's a computer-based network of temperature, pressure, air quality sensors, control valves, damper actuators that monitor and control the HVAC equipment throughout the district remotely. We can control that with our computers. Not the entire district. Some portion of the district still has pneumatic, older, original air-powered HVAC systems. The air-operated thermostats you sometimes hear. So those cannot be remotely monitored. So remote control with Metasys, we are able to command district HVAC equipment to increase the percentage of outdoor air brought into the building and to increase the occupied time to ventilate before and after school hours as per ASHRAE recommendations. So we've done that in the district. We've commanded all our outdoor air dampers to a minimum of 20% outdoor air to mix with that room air and increase the ventilation to all the spaces in the district. And we're increasing the occupied times so that there's ventilation before and after staff and whoever else comes in the building to kind of pre-purge and ventilate in addition to ensure we get the air clean. So our trades and building operators are working daily to maintain and operate these systems. There's thousands of pieces of equipment around the district that we're maintaining. So, and that's all I got. Thank you.
Trustee Petrikov?
With asking a lot of our equipment to do more, I'm assuming, are we aging it even faster?
I mean, I don't think runtime is an issue. I mean, you know, many HVAC equipment runs 24/7 and, you know, all sorts of facilities, so.
What we have is able to handle the
Yeah, I mean-
additional load or whatever?
No, that's not an issue per se.
Okay,
No.
thank you.
Trustee McDonald?
Does every classroom benefit from either having the air handling unit or the univent? Is every classroom equipped with one or the other?
It is. We recently actually sent on an email, I think there was a few exceptions where they might have turned a storage room into a classroom back when the district was kind of bursting. And so I know that they've sent out to all the operators to go out and do inspections and identify those rooms so we don't occupy them. But no, all classrooms that were built as a classroom have that ventilation system.
And then I would assume that all the large common spaces would have the air handling units.
Absolutely. The gyms and the media centers, correct.
Trustee Thorpe?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the presentation, because I had no idea how much work goes into the ventilation and how much forethought is needed. One question specific with COVID, and we know that fresh air is better. Have we found that any certain filtration system works against it, filters it out?
You know, I mean, that's beyond my skill set, but personally, I believe ventilation is the key. I mean, we're all more comfortable outside than inside. So if you can bring the outside inside, that's the best thing you can do, in my opinion.
Thanks.
Trustee Bozid?
Yes, thank you. So this is specific to Salina. I know they had a special system for particulate matter, PM10 and PM2.5. So, but I'm hearing, and I could be wrong, but that system needs to be revised every few years. Do you know anything about that? And is that something that we can implement in other schools?
Well, I think because of the industry adjacent to Salina, they have a, super high-tech filtration system that we just replaced all those filters this fall, at pretty big expense, and so it's all new. I don't think, it's specific for the kind of products that are coming
Right.
out of those industries over there, so I don't think it'd be applicable. In most places, outdoor air is what you want. That's just an exception.
Thank you. Trustee McDonald?
Would you recommend that classrooms that are able to open windows still open windows despite the other things that we have in place to help with air filtration?
Yes, yeah, there's just gonna be a certain point where the heating system may not be able to keep up and maintain comfort, but as long as possible, absolutely.
Yeah, that was my concern, that it might stress the heating system.
It won't stress it, we've got redundant boilers in every building, and if we gotta run them both, we'll run them both. But just air currents, it may not, you might feel the cold air more. We're not gonna freeze anything, but yeah, as much as comfort allows, absolutely.
Trustee Petrikov?
Do we, and you won't be able to answer this question, so I'm gonna ask it of Dr. Maleko, because Mr. Wall's not here. Would we be, because we could be incurring higher costs with utilities because of what we're doing, are we able to use COVID CARES money to offset what would be our, could we look at what our normal averages are and see that if there's a dramatic increase in utility costs, that money could be used to offset it?
Tom is available if needed. I'm not positive, but what I can tell you, and we came out of the finance committee, and actually we're on the other end of it. Right now, we're way under the budget because of the fact that we haven't had operations
Right.
within the building. So
That
we're
makes sense,
actually
yeah.
in good shape, because if you remember, going back to March, even though we had some staff, we haven't really had full students. So there's been a tremendous number of savings. So we're actually right now, I think we'd be okay. And again,
Utility-wise,
into this
yeah.
year, and that was actually just came up in the finance committee meeting that helped the budget. Now, as far as the CARES, I'd have to ask Tom if he's watching right now, maybe he can send me a message.
Okay.
But I do
Just-
know that we're in good shape for
Yeah.
the budget.
Anybody else out there in Zoom land? Great.
If he's watching right now, he should be on vacation and not watching.
Mr. Abbey, I was anticipating more questions for you, but obviously your report answered a lot of our questions, so
Great.
appreciate all the work that you and your team did.
Yeah, thank you.
So he just answered, we can't use CARES for utilities, so.
I didn't think so. But I'd ask them.
Thank
Thank
you,
you very much.
thank you, great job.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
appreciate it.
Thank you.